Welcome to Building the Future, hosted by Kevin Horick. With millions of listeners a month, Building the Future has quickly become one of the fastest rising programs, with a focus on interviewing startups, entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs, and more. The radio and TV show airs in 15 markets across the globe, including Silicon Valley. For full showtimes, past episodes, or to sponsor the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com.
Are you looking for a designer to help you with your next product or startup? When I'm not working on the show, I'm busy working as an award-winning chief design officer and have been doing software design for startups and other companies for over 20 years. I'm also a published author and recently sold a startup to a multi-billion-dollar company. For more information, visit kevinhorek.com. That is KEVINHOREK.com. Welcome back to the show. Today we have Ignacio Rodriguez. He's the founder and CEO of IR Architects and AVR. Ignacio, welcome to the show.
Hi, how's it going? Nice to thank you guys for having me.
I'm very excited to have you on the show. I think what you guys are doing is actually really innovative and cool. But maybe before we get into that, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Absolutely. So I was born in Mexico.
Okay.
I came here to the United States when I was about a year and a half. Grew up in Long Beach in Compton.
Cool.
In the South Bay area.
Got you.
Then from there I moved to Burbank, where I attended Woodbury University. Got my bachelor's in architecture school.
Okay. What made you want to take architecture? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I always wanted to be an architect. I as far as I can remember, I thought. I don't know if I really understood what an architect was, but I wanted to build things.
Okay.
I wanted to draw. And so, it was kind of a passion of mine. And, in high school, I was able to really kind of understand it a little bit better and taking some of the drafting and architectural courses, which really allowed me to focus into that career.
Very cool. So you get out of university. Walk me through your career up until doing your own thing.
Yes, I always specifically in architecture, I always wanted to build homes.
Okay.
So right when I graduated from my university, I got a job working at a custom luxury residential firm.
Okay.
And that was huge for me. That was what I loved to do. That's what I wanted to do. And I was able to get some great experience there. I was there for about 5.5 years, plus or minus.
Okay. Very cool.
Before I started my own practice.
Okay. So what made you decide to actually make the leap and start your own company?
I mean, at least for me, my father was a big entrepreneur. He tried a bunch of different businesses before he settled into what he does now.
Okay.
And so I kind of understood it, and that was always a passion of mine. I wanted to run my own machine, and I started it back in 2012, right when we were getting out of the recession.
Right.
And it was kind of perfect timing. It was perfect timing for me to take that leap.
No, very cool. So I know it's probably hard to describe, and people can go to your website and check out kind of the designs that you've done. But when I was looking, obviously you've done some huge homes. I think the pool architecture, to me anyway, seems really innovative and cool. So how do you describe the types of homes that you guys actually build?
Well, we design homes that at least from my perspective, we design contemporary homes, modern/contemporary homes.
Okay.
That are obviously luxury, but I think most importantly, they tend to be. We like to focus on what we call a warm modern.
Okay.
So we incorporate a lot of natural materials, and water being one of them. We incorporate a lot of natural stones, natural woods, water elements, and then some green elements, some trees, landscaping, planting into our architecture, so that the home doesn't have that stark modern feel. It has a little bit more of a warm modern.
I got you. No, that totally makes sense. So was there any kind of designers, or where do you draw a lot of your inspiration from?
That's a great question. We live in an era now of Pinterest and Instagram and Facebook and the internet, basically. So, I spent quite a bit of time kind of browsing through the different companies or different content that's out there. And then a lot of it, though, however, is, you spend some time kind of experimenting and where you think the new direction is going to be for the next wave of projects. And so, we in the office here, we tend to have some design charrettes to go over different concepts. And just to see kind of what's working, different ideas, different design directions, different design cues from the past, and pulling them forward and seeing if they're applicable.
No, that makes total sense. So I'm curious to know. I get it's probably a little bit different depending on obviously size of house and who the client's for. But is there like a typical process that you guys kind of follow, or walk us through maybe how you go from getting a new client to actually getting the thing kind of where they can move in? Like, walk us through that process. I get it's a little bit probably different, but I think you could probably give us a decent overview.
Yeah. I mean, yes. Every project, we do get clients that ask us, could we just copy one project into another, into a different job site? And the answer is no, you can't, for a variety of reasons. But building here in the city of LA, the codes are extremely intricate,
right?
And so one of the fundamentals before we start designing is we try to gather as much information as possible on the site. So different code restrictions, different HOA requirements, the different zoning limitations, with the surveyor understanding the topography. Our firm tends to specialize in hillside construction.
Okay.
So
why is that? Just out of curiosity. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, I think I think at least for me personally, we've always kind of aspired to take on the more challenging projects.
Okay.
And when we started our practice, we always took on these difficult job sites, and so we have I wouldn't say an expertise, but we have a knack for loving to do these really complicated job sites.
Okay.
And so because of that, however, we've learned a lot of how to deal with the different contours, different site conditions, and really kind of embrace their challenges into the design of the projects.
Okay. No, that makes total sense. And
then
go ahead. Sorry. Keep going.
Sorry. And then, so once we understand a firm grasp on our limitations, then we start to design with the idea of, what are we trying to accomplish on the job site?
Gotcha.
What are the priorities of the project? Views, privacy, open space, tall ceilings tends to be the general, the general items that everybody is looking for.
Got you.
And then you get into the nuances of what everybody specifically needs for their projects.
No, that makes total sense. So walk us through what AVR is and how does it complement what you guys do at IR Architects?
Yeah, absolutely. So AVR Studio, Architectural Virtual Reality, is a studio that we started, I want to say about 3.5 years ago, plus or minus.
Very cool.
And we really started it because we were working on these extremely, large projects,
Sure.
10, 15, 20,000 square foot homes, where, as you're drawing it, you tend to lose the scale of the house. Okay. And what I mean by that is, the rooms start getting so big and everything starts getting so big that, it just, you lose the scale of it. And so AVR Studio really allowed us to kind of go back into the projects, understand on a human scale, exactly what the project has, the different intricacies to each of the sites and each of the designs,
okay,
and really understand what we're trying to build and get in front of any design conflicts that we have, get in front of any potential design changes that we want to make earlier in the process, so that if you really want to get rid of a column in a corner, or if you really want to open up a window a little bit more, you're able to do it before the engineers get involved. That way, you kind of spare the re-engineering fees, and you really are able to kind of pull the project or the client back into the project so they can see why, we need to spend that extra money on specific, specific elements.
Smart. Okay. No, that makes total sense. And then you basically build them their home in VR, and they can kind of wander through. Is that how that works, or walk us through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So once we've designed the project, we basically take our project into VR.
Okay.
And it's done in 3 phases. The first phase is a drywall phase, where the project appears to be incomplete drywall, so no textures. And we just walk the space to see if it feels correct, if the scale is right, if the ceilings are good, the openings are good, the space is big enough, because that's a very difficult conversation to have, which is this room big enough for you?
Yeah.
How do you measure that? How can somebody even respond to that? So with AVR, we're able to have that conversation, put on a headset, and walk it together and see if it's big enough. And, 9 times out of 10, you'll be amazed on, what somebody believes is too big or too small. And we're able to kind of dial that in. Once we get through that phase, then we go into the next phase, which is the interpretation model, which is where we begin to apply all the textures throughout the house, apply furniture to give you some scale, and really kind of begin to interpret the design, basically, of what is being proposed, without getting into too high detail or on the finishes, just because, the client needs to, they need to feel like they can still make changes and it's not final.
Right.
And they come in and they usually give us a lot of great feedback, and we go into different color schemes, different floor finishes, floor treatments, and it actually, in the VR, we're able to model a day scene and a night scene. So we have lights.
Interesting.
We have different reflections to really make sure that we capture sight lines, privacy issues from the neighbors, from different spaces, different spatial relationships. Really kind of get into that with all the textures. And then once that phase is done and the project is satisfied with everything that we've done, then we get into what we call the high detail pass, where we go in and we really kind of flush out all the different conditions, put in all the lighting exactly the way it's being proposed: backlighting, indirect lighting, cove lighting, pool lighting, and really kind of swap out all the furniture for the actual furniture that the clients either really like or intend to install in their house. And that's kind of the process, and it takes about 3 months, plus or minus, depending on the scale of the house and
Sure.
the client's availability. But from my side, it really allows the clients to understand what we're doing. It's really to understand it, to feel it, and to to eliminate those big surprises once you start construction.
Sure. Do you also give the virtual reality experience to the people actually building the house, so they can go through it as well and make sure that they build exactly kind of what the client signed off on?
Absolutely. We do it in VR for the builders once they're bidding the project.
Right.
To basically, because it's a great tool to communicate.
Sure.
Because you're taking information that's 2-dimensionally in plans,
Right.
and in drawings, and then putting it in a 3-dimension phase to a scale that they can walk. And they usually have a great amount of feedback. They see different detail conditions, what we're trying to accomplish in different areas, and they're able to give us feedback. Oh, okay, we got to make sure we coordinate, X,
Right.
these materials with this trade, and I didn't understand you guys were trying to do that, and and it's great because it eliminates the change orders. It eliminates that ugly conversation down the line of, that's not what we bid. Where you're sitting there and you're like, well, it's in the drawings, and in the end, if it's not in their budget, if it's not in the proposal that they gave us, it's going to be an extra, which is just going to eventually rub everybody the wrong way.
No, totally. No, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm curious though, to get your thoughts on how did you guys because you're basically, obviously, like, you need the traditional architecture skills and whatnot, but you guys are very much a tech company as well. And how did you bridge that transition? Was it hard? Was it difficult? A bit of both? Walk us through kind of integrating technology into your business.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely complicated, primarily because you're changing the way the workflow works,
Totally.
the way we design, and that is one, not easy. Two, receives a lot of friction from everybody because why change something that's working? And three, on the technology side, I do not have a big tech background, so
Okay.
I have two partners, Craig and Cameron, Craig Tolliver and Cameron, and they came on board and they really helped iron out all of the kinks, basically, in the different elements of making sure that something that a lot of people don't know, but VR units and real units are not the same, even though you would imagine that they are.
Sure.
We had to develop a special formula to make sure that what we're seeing in VR matches what we are seeing in real life. And so that was a little tricky. That was a little tricky because, you would imagine that, 1 inch in VR is 1 inch in the real world. And it wasn't the case. And it took some troubleshooting to accomplish that. And then some practical tools that needed to be, baked into our code, into our programs, because, the tech has to be very practical for our clients. It cannot be something where it's like a gaming experience. It has to be very user-friendly, very intuitive. And that took a little bit of time in the troubleshooting of it. And then I think the biggest part that I take a lot of pride in is you don't get dizzy in the VR experience.
Yeah.
It's a very high.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a very high quality product that that people can spend a lot of time in without it affecting them, because a lot of times you get a bad VR experience and you never want to put it on again.
Yeah, if it makes you nauseous, that's probably the first and only time you try VR, right?
Yep.
Interesting. So how did you kind of come through some of those technical challenges?
Well, I mean, it was tricky. A lot of it is, Cameron has a coding background.
Okay.
A coding and gaming background.
Gotcha.
Craig has a gaming and architecture background, which was paramount.
Sure.
To begin to bridge the gaps. And a lot of it is just, you got to be willing to try it. It's not a plug and play type, system. We built it from the ground up, and and it's just asking the simple questions, like, why doesn't it do this?
Okay.
Everybody looks at each other, and the answer is, well, let's go figure it out.
Okay.
Let's go figure out how to make that work. And then, and then understanding that we are architects, so it has to be accurate.
Right.
Accuracy is fundamental to this working, right? If it's not accurate, then it's just a game. And if we're playing a game, then how is that a tool, so to speak?
Sure. Well, and then I'm assuming you've tried a bunch of different VR headsets and picked the best one that works for you guys.
Yeah. So we actually, on a yearly basis, we buy a ton of headsets. We may buy 10 or 15 headsets that are on the market. And only what we, there's some really cool ones. There's some nice 4K and 8K experiences that are coming out.
Yep.
But it's not the headset per se. It's a whole combination.
Okay.
Right. It's got to be the headset. It's got to be the hardware that comes with it.
Sure.
It's got to be the input. The data that we're putting into it has to jive with that. Mm-hmm. And 9 times out of 10, they're not there yet. So like we tend to present in a HTC Vive headset, just because we find that to be the best headset that gives you the best quality.
Got you.
However, we develop in the Oculus.
Right.
And the Oculus has come a long way, but the Oculus still has that bending on the horizon, that kind of gets people a little dizzy.
Yeah.
So again, it's just quality, right? It's got to be a high quality headset. And we've bought a ton, a ton of the 8K and 4K headsets, and they're just not there yet. They're really cool, but the hardware that's required to run them, their stability is not quite there yet. And then, the inputs, the amount of data that we got put in, it's just too complex.
Sure. No, it's interesting. So for actually modeling some of the textures and materials, did you guys find a lot online? Did you sample a bunch? Walk us through getting some of that, because that's got to be tricky in itself.
Oh, absolutely. Textures is a whole nother kind of category in itself. And that would actually be a great question for Craig, who I don't have with me here.
Sure. No, it's cool.
But we build our textures. So all of our textures are in 4K.
Gotcha.
So all of our textures are in 4K, and they're all made using different software. We obviously cannot have a lot of patterns.
Right.
Like in wood patterns and stone patterns. So they tend to be a really large texture, so that you don't see the repetition.
Gotcha.
The reflectiveness, the bumps. I mean, Craig can elaborate a lot more than I can on this, but
Sure.
it is an art all in itself.
No, fair enough. That's kind of what I figured. It sounds like people think it's so simple, some of this stuff, but there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that goes into all this, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you this much. So when I started AVR, I thought I was just adding a division to the architecture practice.
Okay.
Now that we're finished, now that I understand it, I built basically an animation studio.
Sure.
It's an entire different machine that is separate from architecture. It obviously does architecture,
right?
But the lighting, the textures, the modeling, just because we're in VR, the amount of polygons is mission critical to how this experience runs, and it's just so different. It's such a totally different way of thinking that it's not something you would typically bring into an architecture house. It's very complicated.
Sure. So do you work with other architecture firms or not really?
No, we do. We absolutely do. We work with other interior design and architecture firms.
Okay.
We model basically their designs and kind of texture it for them. A lot of times the challenging part to VR is we're going to see everything, right? We're going to expose everything. So if something hasn't been thought about or looked at or designed,
right,
we're gonna find it, and you're gonna find it purely because you can walk. So our VR experience is a free walk kind of platform, so you can walk everywhere. We're not controlling what you can see or can't see.
Got you.
And so we get into these conversations, and so, but for them, because we do have the architecture part of the company that AVR was founded on, so we can bridge the gaps for them. So a lot of times if they haven't really designed different closets or bathrooms or gyms or whatever it is, we can just kind of fill the gaps. But yeah, it's a great tool, and we love working with other architects. You learn a lot. No,
very, very cool. Are you guys doing anything in the AR space or not really?
We are. That's a little more kind of in our R&D department right now.
Got you.
Okay. Especially with the new headsets that came out for the Oculus.
Yeah.
That now have the cameras, the capability to do AR.
Yeah.
Which is great. But nothing that is on the market for us specifically. We've done a lot of prototyping on the HoloLens, which is really cool.
Sure.
But the field of view is too small, even on the new one. So it's in the R&D department. It's not ready yet for public consumption.
Fair enough. No, and what I love about companies like what you guys are doing is so many people, I think, wrote VR off too early, and they were just like, well, that's just for simple games or like a little experience you try a couple times. But you guys are actually providing something that adds a lot of value and a really good use in the real world, kind of outside of gaming, which I thought was really cool when I first got introduced to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I like to believe that we're using VR as a tool,
Sure.
right? It's not going to solve anything per se, but it's a tool, and when used correctly with a whole variety of other tools, it complements very well, and it can save a lot of money, a lot of delays, a lot of agitation. Making I don't know if you've ever built your own house
Yeah,
and
I
made
did.
any
Yeah.
remodels to your house.
Yeah.
But once you're on the field and you want to make changes, man, that's complicated. It
Yep.
could be as expensive as what you were trying to accomplish when you started.
Totally.
So the VR tool really allows you to get in front of it. You're not going to solve everything, but if you could anticipate 80%, 90% of your revisions, oh man, that's a lot of money saved.
Totally. Well, and I think too, just understanding like, ooh, this bedroom's too small or too big, or I need more closet space, or you know what, I need a plug in this pantry or something. I don't know, like simple stuff like that. You're right. That can be such a pain to do later, or very costly. That you probably never do. If you can catch those things when it's literally just a 3D rendering in VR, is way better than like, we got to like demolish this wall and move this out, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then there's other things that are like very important to somebody, but you don't know until they're in the space, right?
Sure.
So they may value like, I need to have a drain here because I wash my dog, and I need to make sure that the whole, like there's all these things that you just don't know, but they walk in and they instantly have their checklist because they live in their space, right? They have their own checklist, and instantly they're telling you, I got to put my broom here. No, the dishwasher has to go on this side. No, this window's too tall. It needs to be shorter, or vice versa. I need more space between my counters, because that's all very personal, right? Like the standard counter height is 36 inches.
Right.
But that's just standard. It could be a little lower and it could be a little higher. And that's something you could kind of nail down with VR. You could really get in there and see it.
Sure. So did you guys build your own kind of interface tools for people to kind of move and interact with things, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we built our own kind of navigation, our own interface, our own avatars. We have material catalogs so that we can control what you see live. So we can change materials. We can change the setting.
Sure.
We can furnish in VR live. So we've done kind of our own coding basically to accomplish that. And most of it is just done through just, different people trying it on and giving us feedback.
Okay. Very cool. Cause that would be interesting. Cause if you're like, I want to see my kitchen in a dark theme or in a like white, for example, you can do that live and I can kind of see that.
Yeah.
That's very
so
cool.
We can change
actually.
Textures. Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of times, like, you're contemplating between a white stone versus a dark stone.
Sure.
And we can run different schemes, and you can see what a white stone looks like in that, if it's going to make it feel too small or too big. It's pretty cool. I mean, and you're able to see it to scale in the space.
Sure.
I mean, that's pretty amazing.
No, totally. And then I think you touched on it earlier. You also work with interior designers. So obviously, depending on budget, if I'm buying stuff from a store or getting it custom made, it's going to be quite different. But if you can show me basically how my living room and my kitchen and my family room is all laid out with roughly the furniture I'm going to get, or if I can afford it to get custom stuff made, is also really cool, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the other part. Like we have catalogs of furniture in our VR that you can, select and it can place. But a lot of times when you get into these really large projects or these really large homes, you kind of can't buy, furniture that's made. You end up having to make a lot of it. You could use some, but you end up making customs, living room sets, custom dining room sets, custom master bedroom sets. And in the VR, you can literally see we build custom furniture. If they've designed it, we build it in and we put it in, and you see it, and it just feels right. It's to the right scale, it's the right size, it's in the right direction, and that's something that you wouldn't be able to quite understand from a floor plan perspective.
Sure. Well, and then it also gives the interior designer the ability to kind of design around what you've picked, or at least help you pick what you're doing, and then the furniture kind of gets designed around that, which is actually really interesting, because then everything like matches perfect, right? Or as perfect as it can be.
As it can be, exactly, or what you can afford to do in your budget, right? Like if you don't have the money to do everything custom, well, then you do your public spaces, your living room, your dining room, your family room, so to speak. The spaces that are very important to you, and then everything else you stage accordingly.
Sure. No, that makes sense.
Pretty cool.
That's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
And is there, like, what's roughly the cost? I'm sure it depends on how much time, but like, do you guys have a rough range, or at least a starting cost of what it takes to get something in VR, and I can walk through?
We do. Absolutely. That's a great question. So typically in VR, because we've been doing this for a while, and obviously when we first started, it was quite expensive just because everything took so long. But we streamlined our process down. Right now we're right around $1 a square foot.
Okay, so that's really affordable, actually.
It is. It's very affordable for the value that you're going to get. It's extremely affordable. And $1 a square foot is for something that's fairly straightforward, and you have a pretty well documented package that we can kind of hang our hat on.
Yeah.
But the average tends to be about $1.50. It's probably where it's at. And on the high end, like on a really nicely detailed package that has interiors and lighting and whole kit and caboodle, that'll be probably in the $250 range.
Okay, still not bad.
Just because everything is, no, not bad at all. But it's just because we're building custom everything. We're effectively building your entire house in VR.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah, but I'm also, like, just to give people some perspective, the homes you're building are what? Tens of millions or more?
Yeah.
So like spending an extra, $20,000 or $30,000 or more when you're spending that much money, it's kind of a drop in the bucket, right?
I mean, it's the value, right? At least from my perspective, yes. So the homes tend to be in the range of the total exit tends to be between 15-20 million to north of 100 million.
Sure.
So if you're doing those kinds of numbers, and we can execute your design, and you can see it for, like you said, 20 grand, 15 grand, 30 grand, something in that vicinity, it's cheap insurance, from my perspective.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. That's quite interesting. So where do you kind of see VR going, either inside your industry or outside the industry? Do you have any predictions or thoughts, or because you've played with a ton of the headsets and you're very much on the cutting edge of this stuff?
Yes, we attend a lot of the trade shows. And
sure.
I see VR is actually making a pretty big transition from a gaming platform to a tool. It really is, and I think the only item that's holding it back is just the hardware.
Interesting.
It's just just being tethered is it's not acceptable. However, all the standalone headsets, the computing power is just not there to deliver a quality VR experience. So, but it's getting there. It's getting there. The new Oculus is great. I mean, the headset is awesome.
Sure.
And the way it hooks up to the laptop is great. And so, everything is just getting better. And in my opinion, we live in the information age where everybody wants to know. And you'll be amazed how with designs, clients don't really know what they're getting. They kind of have a brief understanding and they don't. It's all based on trust.
Right.
And the VR is starting to break down those barriers. You get to, you could do a VR experience of Europe, and you can see it kind of before you go. Make sure you like it.
Yeah, interesting.
And so it's becoming less gaming, more of a tool to see exactly what you're getting, and it'll get there. It'll get there, and it's gonna be the future. It's not if, it is when.
Interesting.
And from my perspective, at least, and I think in 2-3 years you're gonna see leaps and bounds in the industry.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, you're right. Being kind of tethered to a computer that you can't really move around. Well, you can, but you can't walk away, right? Right now anyway, unless you buy some of the newer headsets. But you're right. They're in what you guys are trying to do, you basically need a really good high-end kind of computer to run at least the higher end VR stuff, right?
Exactly.
No.
Exactly. If you're running gigabytes of information,
sure,
it's hard to put it through a mobile headset.
No, very cool. So I'm curious, do you only do VR stuff for kind of clients in the California area, or have you sent stuff outside of California? Because I'm assuming as long as they have the VR headset and the hardware, you can just send them the files over the internet and they can basically run them wherever globally. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we've got some clients that are out of state.
Okay.
And we've streamlined our process and kind of the delivery process, where you basically get a simple link.
Yeah.
It downloads right to your desktop.
Okay.
And you double click it and you're right into the VR environment. So it's quite simple. And now with the new Oculus, without having to do any of the cameras, the base, the sensors that go on either side, now you just literally plug in, you put on your headset, and you're good to go. And once we don't have to plug in, then it's going to be super simple.
Yeah, I guess, hey, it's already pretty simple, but yeah, you're right. Once you're kind of automatically connected, that makes sense. Well, and I'm assuming too that then if I'm building a home and you guys do it, you could, and I have the headset, I could literally do it in my own home.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, we have a plan. Absolutely. For our clients, once we get going, we usually send you a headset and a laptop.
I got
basically.
You.
So while we're going through the design process, you have a full setup in your house.
Very cool.
And you're getting live updates. And once we're done, obviously we pick everything up.
Sure.
But it's a great tool.
No, that's very cool. But we're kind of coming to the end of the show. So how about we close with mentioning where people can get more information about both companies and any other links you want to mention?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you could always, for the architecture side, you could go to irarchitects.us, and there you'll see kind of the process of what we do, and the projects that we're working on. And for the virtual reality, for architectural virtual reality, or I call it AVR Studio, you go to avrstudio.us as well, and that kind of has some nice tabs that are explain who we are, what we do, clients, and careers, and it has a great video that explains kind of a little bit of what we've been chatting about here, so that you can see it on your when you're sitting around, you have some time to watch a video.
Very cool, man. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day.
Awesome. Same here. Thank you. Have a great week.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Alrighty. Bye.
Hey.
Hey.
I thought that was really good, man. How did you feel about that?
I thought it went really well.
Yeah, we covered a ton of stuff. I'm happy with how it turned out. I'll let you guys know kind of once it's edited and up online. And very cool, man. I love what you guys are doing. I think it's really cool.
It's really cutting edge.
Yeah.
It's really cutting edge, and and it, at least on my architecture side, man, it gives us such leverage where nobody's really doing this. So
sure.
Any projects that we really go after, it renders a market. It renders at least our market with very little competition.
Yeah, I can imagine because, yeah, you're right. Like giving somebody, well, yeah, just being able to give them basically like their home before it's even constructed and they can decide and make changes and walk through it is, yeah, there's nothing that compares to that, right?
No. And you know, you hear about architecture in VR,
Yeah.
but it's always in like huge projects, stadiums, or like huge, like we're talking about bringing it to your house, you know, where you can, this is where you are going to spend time. So it's a great tool.
No, very cool, man.
Great tool.
All right. Well, I'll let you guys know when this is up and, you know, thanks again for doing it, man. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for listening. Please visit our website at buildingthefutureshow.com to join the free community, sign up for our newsletter, or to sponsor the show. The music is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.